Hello. I'm going to do today's lecture over chapter 1 in our introductory chapter of our book, Portable Literature, Reading, Reacting, and Writing. And that is precisely what we're going to do this semester. We're going to read, we're going to react and respond to that literature, and we're going to write about it. Some of you may have a lot of experience with this. Some of you may really enjoy reading literature and writing about it and talking about it. And we're going to get all into it and have these great discussions over what these texts mean, what they're trying to tell us, and all of that. It's going to be fun. We're having a great time. And some of us may not enjoy literature that much, and that is okay. I hope by the end of the semester you enjoy it a little more, or at least learn how to read it in such a way that it is profitable for you, that you don't feel like you're wasting your time every time you sit down with a short story or a book, or you find the thing that you enjoy to read. And I enjoy reading. I love to read, obviously. That would be crazy if I didn't enjoy reading after being a literature professor, but there are a lot of people who don't enjoy reading. And so I'm going to address that before I get into chapter 1. First of all, if you don't enjoy reading, I'm not judging you. Okay, I'm not. And I think that we're all in different places. We all have different likes and dislikes. I don't like math. I'm really upfront about it. And that's no offense to all my math majors. I bet you could teach me a bunch about math that my football coach didn't teach me in high school. So, I mean, not my football coach, the football coach. I didn't play football in high school. Okay, so moving on from that. I was a theater kid. Not that you can't tell. But, yeah, seriously, though, we all have our likes and dislikes. See, this is what I'm talking about, the rabbit trails. I'm just not going to do it. Staying focused. I just want to prove that I have notes. I'm going to stay focused. So, but you also have to get to know me, right? You have to see my personality a little bit. So boring. Sometimes we get these really dry, boring videos that are just like so dull. We want to go to sleep in the middle of it. There's no telling what I'm going to say next. So, no, it's true, 1301, former 1301 students. Okay, so we don't always love reading. Some of us don't love reading, and it gets to be a problem. Or we read and we don't comprehend what we're seeing. And it goes in our head and out, and we don't understand what they're trying to say. So, and then it becomes this event that not only becomes passive, but it becomes an aggravation. Then you want to put it down. You don't want to do it anymore. Well, I hope we can change that. I hope we can give you some skill sets to get past that. And even if you don't ever come to love it, at least have a set of skills that you can then put into action to help you. So one of the things they talk about, go into chapter 1, is that reading is passive for the most part until you turn it into an active process. And being engaged in your reading changes that. So how do we stay engaged? Well, first of all, we're reading and then we're annotating. We are annotating that. And one of the first things we do before that is like preview. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. The first thing they say is you preview the book. Look at the title. The title of our book is a perfect example. It tells us what we're going to do. I already kind of jumped ahead of myself with that, but it does. And then, once you get into it, there's all kinds of things from our literature that we're going to read. We're going to read poetry. We're going to read short stories. We're going to read shorts, some dramas, and things like that. And when you get into that, it has little things that'll point out. Look, every literature has a pattern that tells you meaning. So let's give a sonnet for an example, is 14-line poem where the first 12 lines give you a problem, and it introduces a problem, and then they talk about this, situation, and then at the end, the last 2 lines, the couplet at the end, the last 2 lines, couplet, okay, solves the problem or gives an example of how to solve that problem. So that is a structure that gives meaning, that when we see a sonnet, we know what we're going to get. When we see a concrete poem, like they give the example of George Herbert's Easter Wings, that concrete poem is going to be in the shape of wings, or you see something that has a symbol, like if you had a cross. If you saw a poem that was written in the shape of a cross, that would also be a symbol for the religion of Christianity. If it were written in the shape of a star or an ocean wave or something like that, with the shape of the poem would take on the symbolism. It would have more meaning because it would have symbolism behind it. And then you get to analyze that. So that is our beginning of starting to get engaged in our literature. So one of the other things, so that's just the visual. So when we get into reading, we want to look at how a story is structured, right? So like we talked about the poem, but we also have things inside short stories. What can those be? The way paragraphs are written. How things are capitalized or bolded or put in, or exclamation points are put or underlined. So we can get a little creative in our fiction stories, that they are written a certain way or italicized in a certain way that create meaning. And that is what we're looking for with fiction. What is it in the story that's not only giving us information, but creates added meaning? So this is a useful strategy because it gives us clues prior to even reading, okay? And this begins our process of analysis. So anytime you get clues from that, you're going to start analyzing that work. So one of the things that when you start reading short stories or poetry, you want to highlight. You want to highlight and get engaged. Get your pens and your papers and your sticky notes. I am a huge fan of office supplies. I'll just show you. Here's one of my little things of colored pens, and I keep them on my desk. And I have another one. It's embarrassing. I even have little sticky notes stuck to that. But I have all of this stuff because I will make I'll make each color, I'll color coordinate and make colors have, create meaning. So maybe purple, underlining something in purple would possibly mean theme to me. Or if I want to highlight it, it's exceedingly important and I want to analyze that. Or I want to circle words I don't know. But when I get involved in a text, especially when I'm going to analyze it and explicate it, explicate is my $10 word for analyze. Explicate. And I'm going to say that all year. When I explicate text, I get all into it and I highlight and underline and write on the side and I think, put down what I'm thinking. And I'm engaged in it. What that does is it helps me to know where I'm at in the process, like visually. Like I can see if I'm reading through something and I'm not saying much, it's either the two things are happening with me personally. One, I'm either engrossed and I haven't really been writing because I'm so interested in it, or maybe I'm just kind of passive and I'm not putting a lot of effort into it. Maybe I don't like that short story as much as I like other things. So I have to make sure I'm doing that. That's just a process I go through. So if you are a person who is already into I'm going to underline the things I want to talk about, I'm going to put a question mark by things I don't understand, I'm going to put a star by something that's important, highlight the theme, whatever kind of index or legend you come up with for yourself, that's okay. That is a very personal thing. You don't have to do what I do. Just come up with something that works for you, and I'm happy to give suggestions. But one of my most important suggestions is just have a pen or pencil ready and a piece of paper. And if you write on your book, that's fine. Or if you have a copy of your short story or your poem, get involved in it. Messy that thing up, not to where you can't read it, but to where you put your active engagement on that paper. So that's one of the first things. Highlight and check out those details. So annotating, people think annotation is just writing on it. Well, annotation is actually your response to it, okay? And when you annotate, you are noting down what kind of patterns that you see over and over again. Maybe on the side, maybe they mention stardust or they mention water or dirt or death or resurrection or some biblical reference, or they have something that's said over and over and over again, you would mark those down. Maybe you give it a color code. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have a sticky note that you write on there because you want your book to be clean and not messy, and you keep it all pristine. You put a little sticky note in there and say, the sky, the moon, the stars, and stardust are mentioned over and over. So you would want to say that has meaning. Those things together that are connected have meaning, right? So sometimes when you have things that are on the polar opposite ends, like snow-capped mountains and an ocean beach, we're going to wonder why those things are connected. But maybe there is a connection. Maybe it's the disparity between those two things that is the connection. So we'll talk more about that too when we get into looking at our texts. But those annotations that you do, everything you write down is important. So you want to also identify literary devices. If you see multiple things of like similes or alliteration or imagery or metaphor, hyperbole or idioms or any of that, those things have meaning. And so this is where I find a lot of students get very excited, because when they see those, when they start seeing those and they start to put those together, they get excited because it creates more meaning. And if they know allusions, an allusion is another reference to another text. If they get that allusion, it's just very exciting. It opens up the whole meaning of the text. So annotation, let me see. I'm on page 5 of our textbook. Let me move over. They give an example of what that looks like too. They have examples in our textbook of what that looks like. So please check out 4 and 5, page 4 and 5. So they talk next about, on page 6 and 7, they talk about writing about your literature and planning your essay. So once you have read your literature and you have an idea about what you want to talk about, then you start planning your work. I have found that a lot of students, and high school students especially, what they do is they will read through something. And I don't know if this has been your high school experience, and I don't know where you are in college with literature. We haven't met yet, so I don't know all of it. But some of you from my 1301 class, I know what your previous experience is, and or somewhat has been. And so sometimes in high school, you'll get a piece of literature, whether it's a short story or a poem, and the teacher would hand it out and they say, okay, we're going to read this. Now I want you to write a summary over it, or I want you to write a response. And you read it once, and then the night before you write this, summary response. Maybe Spark Notes helped you, or Cliff Notes or something like that, and that's been your experience. And so it's never been this in-depth kind of exploration. And so we have what we get when we get to college is I'm asking you to do a deeper study. I'm not asking you to read a poem and say, yeah, it's about a guy who kissed a girl on their first date and never saw each other again. Okay, well, that may be the general meaning, but I want you to go deeper into that. So that's what we're doing in this class, is going deeper and then saying what all those things mean. Where does that go? And to plan an essay, you have to understand those things first. That's why the annotation and the highlighting and the active engaged reading helps. So when we're planning an essay, you want to consider several things. You want to consider your audience. Who are you writing for? Are you writing for yourself? Is this a creative writing thing? You can write for yourself, or even then you're writing for an audience, right? Even if it's an audience of 1 or 2, or your mom's going to read it, or you're going to have your spouse read your poem that you wrote, which is what my poor spouse has to do. He has to read all my poetry. And he said, how do you know, what does this mean? I'm like, I need to go back to the drawing board. But he's a math guy, so I don't know. So you consider your audience. So with me, I'm your audience, okay? I'm an academic. I want to see your best work. I want to see what you think. I really care what you think. I can read all day long what the experts think about something, okay? I can go to JSTOR and I can look up any kind of, academic article all day long. But what I want you to do, we can all do that. We can go and see what all the experts think. That's great. They're so smart. What I want to know is what you think, because you have something to say. And your opinion is valid and valuable. And I really, really try to impress this upon my students, that you're valuable and what you say is valid. It needs to be said. And maybe this will be an exciting exploration of something that you've never tried before. So know your audience, know who you're talking to. And I want to know what you think. Every time we have a bunch of different voices get together and we talk it out and we explore something, we learn from each other. And that's the point of school, is to learn and learn from one another. So are you writing for your peers? Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to do a peer review. Your peer's going to read your paper. But if you're writing for me, I'm an academic audience. So you're going to use your best language. There's going to be a format, even conventions. There's going to be a format for me. I'm going to ask you to do MLA. I want it to be as perfect as you can get it. Do the very best you can. Don't do it the night before. I almost always know. It's a gift. I tell all my students that. It's a gift. I just kind of know. There's usually signs that it's done the night before. So MLA format, your style is going to be formal. Your language is going to be elevated. You're not going to write to me in a very informal manner on a piece of paper. I may be very gregarious and, fun and fun-loving, but when it comes to the paper, I want your best, most elevated, formal language. Because when we talk about it, that's how we do. I want you prepared for the next stage of that. And so also when you write, moving on to that, you're going to understand your purpose. Understanding your purpose means understanding what the assignment is to be. So are you writing to respond? Are you writing to interpret? Are you analyzing it? Are you writing to evaluate? And I'm on page 7 and 8 with that. When you evaluate, your purpose is to assess a work's literary merit. So you're saying whether it's good literature or not. When you're writing to respond, it's saying, they say when you write to respond, your goal is to discover and express your reactions to a work. I really like that. And then when you interpret, your aim is to explain a work's possible meanings. We do a lot of that in here. A lot of times we'll read poems and somebody will say, well, I really got this out of it, or I got that out of it. And somebody can be totally on the opposite spectrum, and that is okay. And that's good. That's what we want, because what that does is it broadens our horizons about the literature that we're reading already. So when you have all of this stuff down, okay, when you have read, when you have kind of ideas about what you want to write, when you've been given an assignment and you're starting to write, you are going to have to choose a topic. Sometimes your topic is given to you. Sometimes you choose it yourself. But what I want to impress upon everyone is you cannot write without content. If I could put a tattoo somewhere on anybody about literature, it's like, you can't write without content. You have to know, you have to have something up here about what you want to say. And so we read our works, we come up with ideas, we're working through it, and we choose a topic, or we're given a topic, and we have to plan that out. So you have your topic, you start to, they give us on page 8 and 9 all these great ideas. If you ever have to choose a topic, I would take a picture of this. If you plan on giving this book back and somebody says, hey, I want you to choose your literary topic, take a picture of this. Great ideas in this book. So then you want to have something to say, and you got to plan your essay. Okay, here is where I get very serious about this. We have to write with the writing process for it to be well planned out, literally, like to be organized. So my writing process is the same. I mean, it's the writing process, but I consider it one of the most important skill sets you learn in 1301 and 2 is the writing process. It transfers across every class you have. I don't care if your science teacher or math teacher asks you to write an essay in APA format. The process of going through this to write something is the same. We have pre-writing, and pre-writing contains brainstorming. And with brainstorming, we are getting all those ideas out in any form or fashion that you want to do. It can be a brain dump, a free write, a list, a cluster, a mind map, anything. I don't care. A cloud. I don't care what you do. It can be word vomit on a page. I don't care. It's like whatever you want to do to get all of those thoughts and ideas out of your mind, put them on the paper. And then when you have that brainstorm, you want to kind of outline that into some kind of fashion of organization. Now, for me, an outline is a great thing. It's a great tool. One of the reasons it's a great tool is because sometimes I have sparkly, shiny brain and I can get distracted. Hence my rabbit holes, right? But that outline, when I write, you can't even believe how straightforward it is for me. It literally organizes my mind. All right. And it's an awesome tool. So, and it's great because what you're doing is literally building your essay. You have that introduction, that capital I, it's so pretty. It's one, stands for one, Roman numeral. I always think introduction because it's the first thing I write about. So intro, and you've got your thesis statement that you write out, and then all that organized A, B, and C, and 1, 2, 3, and little A's and little I's, and y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a thing of beauty. To me, it's a piece of art because when I fill it out, it's so beautiful, it's so organized, and my essay is there. And all I'm doing is putting it together. I even put my quotes there and analyze them, and that it's all together. Now, that is me, okay? I am not saying, now I'm a fan, but I'm not saying it's for everybody. So don't feel like I'm forcing that down your throat. I'm not going to do that. I will ask you to outline your big essay, but that's for a purpose. It is so you know you haven't missed anything. But we're just talking about right now. I won't jump too far ahead. So then once you get all of your ideas, you're going to draft. And then sometimes that draft, it just comes out. Sometimes our draft is our brainstorm. And what I don't want you guys to think, don't make the mistake that a first draft is a final draft or anything you're going to turn in. If you are just pouring those thoughts out, that is, and you haven't done any kind of like due diligence prior and research and all that, that is still pre-writing. That is not actual writing. So I want that real clearly noted because that is where we get into a lot of trouble with our English papers. We'll just throw something on the paper and we're like, oh, that sounds so great. And maybe it does. Maybe it sounds wonderful the first time. But we aren't done. We really have to revise. And that's where you go back in. You're going to draft that out. You're going to get all those ideas. It's the best thing you can write. When I ask you to turn a draft 1 in, it's the most complete draft you can possibly write. It is not a first draft of ideas, okay? So that's something that I want to make sure everybody truly understands. So then after you get that, in my class, you're going to do a peer review, and you're going to have me looking at it, and somebody else is going to look at it, and then we revise it. And revision is literally to look at it in a new way. Maybe there's ideas that we are going to go over again. Maybe there's something you need to expand. Maybe there's something you just need to take out because it's simply wrong. But you revision it. Look at it again. And then we're going to edit it. And we're going to edit it for small things. Now, I want to note let's see, edits. Page 20. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit on this. All those pages about drafting, all that on page, let's see, I wrote it down. No, I didn't. That whole thing about drafting an essay, it's like from page 8 to, let's see, like 17 or 18, 19 documentations, all that stuff. Take a look through all of that. It gives you a whole lot of examples, gives you examples for that. But when it comes to editing, on page 20, there's this great list. So after you edit, and even on page 19, it talks about sources. We're going to get to that in a second. But on page 20, they talk about editing and proofreading. And it gives this list of things you need to have with your essays. And it says, when you write about works of literature, follow these guidelines. Use present tense verbs when discussing works of literature. So we're always going to write in the present tense with that. Only use past tense verbs only when discussing historical events. Avoid unnecessary plot summary. So sometimes our essays, when they should be analysis, it's summary. Analysis is explaining why something is important and what's going on in there on a literary device level and what meaning is created. Plot summary is just telling me something I already know that's already happened within the text. We'll work on that, but these are really important. This is a really important checklist. So I really want you guys to check out 20 and 21 with this. And it says use literary terms accurately. We want to do that always. Italicize titles of novels and plays, and place titles of short stories and poems within quotation marks. Get that confused a lot. And then refer to authors of literary works by their full names in your first reference to them. And then after that, you use their last name, okay? And you don't ever refer to them by their first name, okay? And so those are little things like that people don't really kind of think about, but those are very important things, and those little things add up to a really fine paper. If you call every author by their full name throughout the whole thing and then start calling by their first name, it just kind of devalues what you're saying, because it's like it's just learning how to write on a more academic level is what that is. It's accuracy of it. And then finally it says, be careful not to make sweeping or unrealistic claims. Remember that the support you present cannot prove that you are saying what you're saying is true. So choose words like demonstrate, show, suggest, or indicate rather than prove. What we want to do, like when we say support, like this supports you, we're asking for you to literally support a text. Proving is you can't prove something, but that's what we want to do. We want to say, I'm right about this, and this proves that. That was a mistake I made a lot in my early times of writing in college, and they'd say, you can't prove it, so just say support or demonstrates, and I'll give you a list of words for that. But there's one more thing on page 18 and 19, the works cited. It gives a whole little list. I'm not going to go through it on this video. You can read it. But it gives a whole list about using sources, and it gives these great ideas to help you with that. Okay. And then finally, your final copy of writing. I'm kind of going through the writing process with you in case we've lost track. Writing process. The final copy is the last one you turn in to me, and it's as perfect as you can possibly get it. It's been revised, twice, and this is your third copy, and your final copy comes to me very clean. Part of our job when we're writing is making connections. I'm trying to give us 3 examples, by the way, of trying to get to the spot I wanted to be in the book. They give us reasons, like what are we actually doing when we write? And I went through the whole writing process because I really find that that is one of the most important tools. And that's what you're going to be doing through the whole thing. But our job when we write is to make connections. And when you're writing, and even when you're annotating, you're going to be looking for patterns of related ideas, images, reoccurring words, and things like that. Oh, I know where I was. I know where I lost myself. And that is part of our important thing. And this is going to the draft area of it. You're looking for the connections. All right, it's not just write a thesis and 3 paragraphs and a conclusion and that's it. I don't like fluff. And if there's something that I get really, I grade pretty tough on, is fluff. I want you to give me the meat of what you're talking about. And when you draft, we're going to look for connections. And your thesis is going to be as clear as a bell. And your thesis is a whole sentence that tells me what you're going to tell me about. So basically, your thesis guides me as a reader. It's going to tell me what you're going to write about. And then you're going to tell me how you're going to support it. And those things, all of this that we're talking about, which we will do over and over and over again this semester, are going to become part of a habit for you. And hopefully after 1301, this feels kind of natural and smooth for you. Hope so. I am going to end our little video here. I'm gone on at 30 minutes, which I feel like it's pretty good for me. And that's chapter 1. That's my lecture over chapter 1. I will do chapter 4 and 5 as well and give you some things to think about. But please read that. Make sure you are highlighting things that make sense to you. Make sure that you are going through there and taking note of the things that you feel like you need to learn more about and the things that you're good at even. And so you're going to start to see your strengths and weaknesses in writing. And as you do that, that's how you grow as a writer. So chapter 1, done. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you as you read. And then I'm going to do the same thing for 4 and 5. And have a great day. See you soon. Bye.